Hello everyone, Jeremiah Hughes here from Team Locust, and I want to go ahead and show you the things I've been working on this past week. Unfortunately, a lot of the things I've been working on I won't very well be able to demonstrate for you because I'd have to recreate bugs to do so. A lot of what I've been working on is playtesting, bug squashing, and overall just making sure all of our systems work the way they needed to work without any huge bugs or noticeable bugs or anything. One of the biggest bugs we had though was when the player would shift across a gap, aggro some enemies, and shift back across the gap, those enemies would continually try to get to the player by finding a direct path through the nav agent system. Unfortunately, if there is no direct path and the enemy's constantly trying to find one, it's just causing a huge ton of lag. And we didn't realize that before because, well, our battles were smaller. Once we added a lot more battles and bigger battles, it was very, very apparent when it happened. Another thing that was located during this bug fix is our minions. Unfortunately, one of the animations weren't set to loop, and I didn't realize it. So when we jumped back across the gap and there was minions sitting there, they would literally freeze and look like they weren't moving or anything. Okay, so both of those are fixed. Let me go ahead and jump into the Shadow Dungeon and show you the stuff that I'm able to actually demonstrate to you. One of the first things you'll notice as we come in is the UI looks a whole lot different. We also added another bar to it for a cooldown. So basically, as you get to your 30% health and the summons become available to you, and you go ahead and use the summon, it'll also use the cooldown. So this prevents us from being able to like spam the summons whenever we're low on health. Let's say you are at 30% health, use a summon, gained a little bit of health. 2 seconds later, you can use it again, and it was a very unfun and unbalanced part of the game. We wanted to make that or get that fixed. Um, we wanted the UI to look much different though, because everything else you could pull out the debug menu and so on, it looked a certain way, and we just wanted this to mesh very well with it. One of the other things we worked on though is our boss enemies. They're much bigger, much taller than any of the other enemies, and because of this, the health bar that was above their head, you wouldn't be able to see when fighting a boss. So we created this boss UI here to help solve that problem for us. And as you can tell, it just looks better, it feels better. The game plays really well in this state, and overall, we're very, very, very happy with where it went. This next week, something we're going to be doing is working on the overall balancing of the projectiles, the damage, the player's health, and stuff like that to make it where you can't just spam like I'm able to do right now and, just destroy the enemies that way. Um, two of the other things I do want to talk about that I got working, but unfortunately there was a few bugs in it I didn't have time to fix. If I do have time to fix them, I will re-implement them because they're very nice features to have, just for the fun of the game. When we were balancing, we didn't want to just balance, stats and stuff, but we wanted to balance fun, right? So one of the things we created was the customer um, a character customization where you can actually change the clothing and the way your player looks, just to give a little bit of extra flair. And you're able to do this in Duncan's house, and it added a fun little aspect to the game. Another thing we added was an arcade machine that you could actually go into Duncan's house. Press E on the arcade machine and be able to play four of the games that were created during my time in Full Sail. One of the games were Sokoban, another game Tic-Tac-Toe, Space Invaders, and something similar to Asteroids that I call Space Wars. And unfortunately, there was a few bugs within them games itself that could, if the player went into it and found that bug, it would break this game. So I did take them out because I didn't want this game to feel broken at any time. Those are the things we worked on. Unfortunately, the last two I did have to remove for at least this build. Maybe we'll see them again in the future so I can demonstrate them because I was proud of them. But I hope everybody enjoyed. Look forward to showing you the other stuff we're able to do the rest of the capstone project. Thank you all very much.
Hello, my name is Roy Bennett, and this week I primarily worked on iterating on the Fire Dungeon with new art assets, lighting, and also iterated on the design too, just adding extra enemies that spawn around to give the player something to constantly do every couple of seconds. So I also added some gaps to the level to kind of keep that mechanic consistent throughout each level. So the player is met with much harder minions this time around. We're slightly starting to balance these minions out. We also took the instructor's feedback of adjusting the lighting values of the levels. We used an HDMI monitor and a VGA monitor and adjusted the lighting values against those so the levels don't appear too dark or too bright. And finally, I also added game music and boss level music specific for this fire dungeon as well.
For this week I worked on reworking the wind dungeon, reiterated on the level design, added more environmental assets, and included some music. Also made the wind a little easier to see, also tried to include some traps and enemy spawns just like the other levels. There are also some crystals, just like the other levels. And as we continue forward, the mushrooms are more spread out, and there are also some gates to block the path. That way it'll direct the player to go to certain areas instead of having them wander around in a large open field without any direction. I also added some post-processing effects and adjusted the lighting to give it more of a evening feel and make them feel like they're in the forest. Functionality still needs to be iterated upon, as there are still some things that aren't working properly. But that's pretty much it.
Alright, we'll be going into the village level. So what we worked on this week, or at least what I worked on this week, was adding in this river and updating a lot of the surrounding area, the walls, terrain painting, some added tidbits of vegetation. There's also some functionality behind the scenes that I was working on. Also, another teammate worked on the portal functionality here, which will be added in at a later date. It's not quite ready yet. And that's it.
I'm Josephine Dolan, and this week I decided that I wasn't going to be working in the wind dungeon anymore. Level design was not my strong suit and I was really struggling, so I decided instead of continuing the struggle to hand it over to a teammate that was much better at it. So this week I made particle effects. This one is for the ice summons area of effect damage. It's a little hard to see on the white, but you get the general idea. In the center are the projectiles for ice and fire for the player's attacks, and here we have the fire summons area of effect attack.